But we just kind of wanted to try this, wanted to experiment and flex, as Jake said, flex this creative muscle. Hi, welcome to This Podcast Is Not For You. This is a brand new podcast we are starting. My name is Wes. We've got Peyton here.
Hi.
And Jake.
Hello.
We're starting this podcast for a lot of different reasons, but we're going to get into those here in a second. But to start off, we're going to have just a little bit of introduction of who each of us are. I'll start with me. My name is Wes Walker. Born in Wichita, Kansas, raised in Joplin and Carl Junction, Missouri, and been a lot of different places. I've lived in California for the last 6 years. I studied film production in school. I love filmmaking, writing, play drums, guitar, and love creating music as well, even though it might not be a first passion of mine. But yeah, that's a little bit who I am.
Hi, I am Peyton Walker. I happen to be Wesley's brother, his younger brother, 3 years younger than Wes. I majored in marketing and graphic design in college, and I play music most of the time. Most of my time is taken up by writing music. I play guitar mostly. I came out with a record this year, a full record this year. It's called Two and Beyond, and I'm working on a solo version of that same record and writing a second record at the same time. I also develop film in my spare time, black and white film, color film, just for fun as a hobby. And that's it for me.
Yay. I'm Jake. So I was born in Joplin, went to Carl Junction High School with these two gentlemen sitting across from me right now. I also am a musician. I'm in the band Me Like Bees. So when global pandemics aren't, affecting everyone's life, I spend probably 3-4 months of the year on the road, cumulative tour dates. With Me Like Bees, and I also part-time as a barista at the hottest local coffee shop in town, Bearded Lady Roasters. So I can really flex my creative muscle there, coming up with menu items, working on our our web store and our site and our menu and stuff like that. I do that, and I also do some graphic design for the band and market most of our tours and our projects and stuff like that. So yeah, I would say that's who I am and what I do. We could talk about our pasts all day, but that's presently who I am and how I spend my time. So
yeah, and why we want to do this podcast. The title obviously is Creating in a Small Town. We've all grown up in the same town. We went to high school together. We played basketball as kids on the same team. Might have been a baseball team in there that we were all on at one point in time. I don't know why you were on it because you were younger than both of us, Peyton. But yeah, we want to do this podcast kind of for the same reasons that we do anything else that we create. It's something that interested us. One of the reasons we have the title This Podcast Is Not For You is we don't really care too much if people listen to it. We wanted to do this because we wanted to do it. We have conversations like we're going to have today and upcoming podcast episodes that we have in mind. We have these conversations a lot of times anyways. We were literally just having one before this all started, and we got the equipment for free, and we were like, you know what? Let's try recording and creating a podcast just because it would be fun, and it's a new endeavor, something that we haven't done before. I love listening to podcasts. I know Peyton listens to a lot of them too, but Jake, do you listen to podcasts at all?
Fun fact is I hate podcasts more than anything else. So if you're listening, that is insane to me, and thank you for some reason. Why are you listening? But yeah, I hate them. So
yeah, and we also know there's a billion of them.
Yes,
so
yeah.
We are not anticipating like necessarily cutting through all of that noise, but we just kind of wanted to try this, wanted to experiment and flex, as Jake said, flex this creative muscle that we have and talk about things that interest us and how we have maybe a unique perspective in some ways. I know everybody has a unique perspective to them, but yeah, that's kind of why we wanted to do this podcast, and now we can kind of jump into the topic at hand, creating in a small town.
Yeah, and that's when I thought of this episode topic, as we were kind of, like Wes has said, he has lived in California for, the last 6 years. I think I really wanted to talk about, and him and his wife are currently, looking at moving back, and it's not for sure. And maybe by the time this comes out, it is for sure or whatever. But right now, I just wanted to talk about Wes's life experience first, kind of what gives us that unique perspective as individuals. And I think creating in a small town like Joplin, Missouri, which, some people call it small. And, my dad's graduating class had 12 people in it. So that's a small town, but in the grand scheme of like creative hubs, Joplin for sure is a small town, but there are a lot of opportunities here, a lot of people doing a lot of really cool things here. And I wanted to talk about, differences that you've seen here, Wes, and what you learned living in the greater Los Angeles area, and what do you think that brings to, this area if you do end up, moving back, and stuff like that. I just want people to know about someone that everyone here has these huge dreams. I want to leave, and I want to go do this, and and they have, ways they think it'll go in their head, and you're
it's a typical
someone that
dream.
did it.
Yeah.
And I just wanted to talk about that for a little bit too,
Sure.
so.
Yeah, I have always loved filmmaking and movies. I fell in love with it seeing Saving Private Ryan for the first time when I was like 12. Debatably too young to see that movie, but it really impacted me. I've always been a history fan, so I think seeing the two things that I really liked come together in one thing, it was eye-opening. I was like, oh, you can make a movie that means something and is important and tells a historical event and helps people relate to it. So I went to college at Missouri State in Springfield, Missouri, studied film production there, met a lot of really great people, mostly from the St. Louis area. But after college, and I made a short film in college.
Lizzie Borden?
No, that was after, actually.
Oh, darn.
I worked on a short with people from Missouri State in St. Louis called Lizzie Borden Took an Axe, I believe it's called, or Lindsey Borden Had an Axe. I can't remember.
There's so many projects he doesn't even remember. Which
Yeah.
one was that?
But when I was in college, I directed a short film called Cousins, and I was really proud of it in a lot of ways, but we got freshman sound designers recording sound. Nothing against them. It's not their fault, but...
It makes sense, though, to do it that way, don't you think?
Yes. No, but so we had to ADR, which means additional dialogue recording, that we had to dub essentially all of the dialogue for a dialogue-heavy short. Like, it was two people in a room talking, and the one thing we didn't have good quality of is them talking. Yeah, so almost all of that sound is dubbed over. So the quality of it when you watch it, I mean, they always say audio is 50% of a film, and which is absolutely true. If you have bad sound in a movie, it's not going to do well. So yeah, after college, I did that. I've always wanted to live in California because Peyton and I's grandparents lived there. We visited there a lot when we were kids, and I always wanted to live in Southern California. I moved out there in 2014. I think it was 2014, November 2014.
Yeah, I think it was 2014.
Jake helped me move out there. Woo! We drove cross country, went to the Painted Desert, and then saw Interstellar. Whenever we got to
have
Orange.
an episode about
Yep.
a couple apps, yeah.
So moved out there, started trying to find some film work. I was living in Orange County, and for those of you that don't know, Orange County is probably an hour 15 drive with no traffic to Los Angeles itself. It's not nearly as close as you'd think it is, but in traffic, which I'll get to in a second, but in traffic it's like at least an hour 45 to get anywhere around the city of Los Angeles. But I lived in Orange County, and I worked for a PBS show in Costa Mesa called Road Trip Nation. It's a documentary series that's been going for a long time. I worked there for a summer as like a post-production intern editor. I kind of cut together interviews for the editors to then pull from later. Worked there for a summer. Didn't really find anything else for a while, and then I moved I moved back here for about 6 months to save up money so I could go on a trip to Europe. And I went and worked at a camp there in Europe called American Village, taught English to French kids, which was a new like avenue of creativity. Like working with kids is, you have to be creative. You have to kind of like be a kid. And it's something I fell in love with doing, is like working with kids and being in a camp setting. So when I moved back, I worked at a camp called Thousand Pines, which I am still working at the moment. I've worked there now 4 years, and I do outdoor education, teach 5th and 6th grade science in a camp setting. But last year, I kind of stepped away from it for a little bit and tried to get back into doing filmmaking stuff. A good friend of mine who I went to college with, he's kind of my writing partner. We've written probably 3 or 4 full-length scripts together. He worked for Disney Digital, which is kind of their internet wing. I think they've kind of been folded into Disney Plus now, but I worked there for a while, just on random. I probably worked on like 7 or 8 projects over the course of a number of months for that year, and worked there as a PA, did some production coordinating work with Kevin, which is what he was there. And then after that, I was like, I mean, that was an hour 45 minimum commute every day to get to Disney from where I was living in Orange County. I had met who's now my wife at that point, and I just did not enjoy that. It was a slog. Being a PA is a thankless job, and you are the bottom of the totem pole. There are great people that work in the industry, and especially in a smaller like division of Disney, it wasn't too bad. But even that was like rough at times and not fun. Kevin and I spent like 4 hours one day cutting gumballs in half. Like that was my job for a day, was cutting gumballs in half for a gingerbread house version of the house from Up. It was a weird thing to think about that I got paid to do. But I got a full-time position back at Thousand Pines and worked there this past year. But the longer we've been there, the more I've just thought like I've been less creative there working in the industry than I could be on my own or with friends back here. So we really wanted to come back for a myriad of reasons. There's really a ton of them that my wife and I want to move back here. A lot of it has to do with friends, people like Peyton and Jake, and our other friends. I was in a band for a long time called Goodbye Majesty with our friends Jay and Alex, and being back around those guys and probably going to play music with them again at some point. Like that is a big appeal. As well as just like the speed of life is so much easier here than in California. Like we live up in the mountains, and it's still like going down the mountain is a pain in the butt. So being back here is just so much easier. And I've really learned like in an industry, like a creative industry, it's really difficult to actually be creative.
I was going to ask you, did it seem like most of the jobs, I mean, I know the jobs that you've had haven't directly dealt with making videos or working in production as much as you would want. Do you think the majority of jobs in Disney or in, a documentary series have less to do with the actual making of
absolutely
the thing than...
It's more just grunt work. Like,
right.
Yeah,
I mean, you've got a bachelor's degree in digital film production, and
I'm getting coffee for people.
Right.
And if the actual number of creative jobs in the film industry is incredibly small. Like you think about a film production has 200 something people. Really, the creative ones are the heads of all of the departments. There is creativity in, I'm not saying the lower people aren't creative people. They absolutely are. They don't have a job that requires creativity most of the time. Electrical guys are moving equipment, making sure everything's working. In the costume department, you might be sewing something, but you didn't design it. You didn't create it.
Well, like, I mean, I don't need a bachelor's degree to cut gumballs in half.
Absolutely.
You know what I'm saying? So it's like
spend however many thousands of dollars on a degree.
To a certain extent, I get it. You have to start somewhere. Like, if
there's a ladder, but it's a hard ladder to climb.
Sure.
I could work as a PA for 10 years and not get a promotion.
How do you show somebody you're creative when that's your job? When your job is to do what you're told and to do something that doesn't show creativity.
You have to go another route. You have to try and do it on your own.
Right.
Like, I mean, Kevin is a super creative dude. He just wrote a script that he's in the process of getting sold.
Can you tell everyone who Kevin is? He's your writing partner.
He's my writing partner. He's a guy named Kevin Schabel. I went to college with him. He's from St. Louis. He's a great guy. He lives in LA. He and I have been buddies ever since college. We bonded over Wolf Mother and the Arctic Monkeys because I saw a sticker on his laptop, and he.
That's why you put stickers on your laptop.
Yep, that's how you bond.
Stickers on our website. I don't know.
For laptops only.
But he and I met in college. He ended up producing my short film that I directed our senior year. Or maybe, was it junior year or senior year? I can't remember. But it was one of those two. He produced that. And we've just been in contact. He reached out to me one time in college. He's like, hey, do you want to write this script with me? And ever since then, we've written, I want to say 4 scripts together. I could be wrong on that. But like, Kevin's a great guy. He was a production coordinator at Disney. He's worked on a bunch of different stuff. He worked on a few movies. He worked on Glow on Netflix.
Sonic. You worked on the Sonic movie, right?
I think so. He definitely worked on Geostorm. I remember him working on Geostorm. But he is a super creative guy, but his jobs have not been creative. He's been a production coordinator or a producer. But yeah, he's a super creative guy. He's had a lot of jobs working on a lot of cool stuff, but the roles he's had are not the roles he wants eventually. It's all climbing a ladder, but he's been doing it ever since he moved to LA. And some people are completely and totally happy doing that, which is great. Like,
also the industry needs people like that.
Yeah, absolutely.
For things to run.
And he's good at what he does in those roles. I don't think he hates any of those jobs, really. Maybe some of them, I don't want to speak for him. But he's having to go another avenue to try and get something he is creating made. He's got to go independent. That's really tough. The publishing company of the book he was trying to adapt and just so happened to be able to get meetings and get something moving. Like 90% of the time that does not happen. You try and call, they shut you down because why would they care? They've got a billion things going on. So yeah, that kind of thing is just not for me, especially getting married and eventually wanting to start a family. My wife lived in the Valley in LA for years, ever since she was like 12 or 13. Like, she doesn't want to be there anymore. I don't want to work up in that industry because it's really hard work and lots of hours, and I would rather try and create something on my own here in a place that's easier to live in and has a good group of creative people here than try and just like grind up the ladder.
Well, that's the thing is, I think, yeah, it's probably tough to do it independently and have some kind of production quality that you want. If you've got,
especially with film, because film just costs so much to do.
Yeah, if you want to do a big movie, then you kind of have to be out there and you need more people. But the good thing now is, especially with music, you can do pretty much anything you want by yourself at home.
Which I think might transition us well into talking about your stuff. Pate.
Pate, let's talk a little bit about your life experience as well. I mean, you could go as far back as you want, obviously, but because I know you were big into like CAD and graphic design in high school, and that's just what so happened to be what you did in college too. But just talk a little bit about what you've loved about living here and creating here, and environments that you thrive in, things you found helpful and not?
Well, I spent most of my time playing sports growing up. I didn't really have a lot of creating or a creative realm or an art realm. And that was kind of through Wes, mostly is that's how we kind of bonded and became friends as well as being brothers. We bonded creatively over movies and music. He got me into Angels and Airwaves and Blink-182, and that kind of launched me into the music world. And it took a while for me to get my own want and desire to be creative. So I've really only been making things and thinking about writing and learning guitar for a couple years now. Ever since college, ever since I graduated 4 years ago, is kind of where I started creating. But Joplin was always home, so I never really saw it as like a final destination. I think that's natural growing up. You never think you're gonna stay in an area for your whole life, but I've really fallen into having some pride in living here. I'm getting more and more too. I'm trying to get more involved in downtown area and knowing people and finding places where I can play music.
Well, can I ask you, because I didn't really comment on this, but
we heard enough from you.
Yeah, I'm done about me. I want to ask, because I felt this growing up too. I feel like you feel like in a town like Joplin or Carl Junction, it's kind of built in, or like you think that you can't do the things that you really want to do here because there's maybe not the avenues for it. Like if I wanted to direct a feature-length film, sure, I would probably have to live in LA unless I...
Or a metropolitan area.
Or a metropolitan area, yeah. Did you feel when you were younger that this couldn't be the final destination if you wanted to do X, Y, or Z?
I feel like...
It's a good question for you,
in
too,
high school,
Jake.
And I feel like now, I think the biggest deterrent for doing things like that is not whether you have the opportunities here, it's getting people to pay attention to it, because the culture is not set up for... Most people know who you are here.
Yeah.
If you grew up here, someone at least knows of you, like by name or through a relative or through a friend, or...
We've been back here visiting for like 2 weeks. I've seen like 7 people I know.
And I think that's hard to break through as a creative person with a voice that you want to be unique, is people will always see you as the junior high kid that they met once at the movie theater, or, it's hard to make things for people or with people that you know intimately. Or at least, I don't know. I think it's the familiarity of being in the area makes it hard to make things that people want to pay attention to, I guess. That's the big downside, I think, for small town.
And we say small town. Joplin's 50,000 people. It's like a small city, now.
Yeah, I mean, I think what do you call it when the population combined with its surrounding population? Because when you add
metropolitan area,
yeah, because when you add CJ, Webb City, Carthage, Neosho, it's like easily 100,000.
Yeah,
and everyone goes everywhere. Everyone goes to Webb City. Everyone goes to Joplin.
It feels like one big area.
So, what made you transition from, in terms back to your life experience? What made you kind of transition from sports to, like, what was it? It was.
I think it was a glacial movement that kind of. It ended when baseball ended, and I was done my senior year with baseball.
Which you played in college.
I did. I played at Missouri Southern.
And
living legend right
here. I had
here.
a good 4 years at Missouri Southern. It was a lot of fun.
He had a great 4 years. I was there when he broke the record. So anyway, yeah. So after that, were you looking for to be part of something again? Because with sports, that's what you get, right? It's like, sure. I'm around these people. We're in the trenches, quote unquote. We're working for something. Is that what you were kind of looking for? Or were you just looking for an outlet to,
Yeah. And what's interesting about sports for me is I was never I always felt like I was kind of on my own. I mean, I had a couple great friends at Missouri Southern that I still talk to today, but there wasn't a lot of that for me. I didn't do a lot of the things that the guys on the team did in terms of what they do in their free time. I spent most of my free time watching movies, playing guitar, already planting the seeds of being a creative person.
Yeah, who you are now.
Who I am now was
What year did you start playing guitar?
I started playing guitar. The first time I picked up a guitar was probably high school, but I started learning how to play guitar probably my freshman or sophomore year in college.
Okay. You have no idea how many times when I was younger, Peyton would like pick up a guitar and I'd be like, I could teach you how to play something. And he was like, no. No.
Yeah.
I don't want,
I don't care, man. It's just fun.
Yeah. And then he's like 10 times better than I am at guitar now, which is not infuriating at all.
Yeah, it didn't ever really... I didn't know I wanted to play guitar specifically, until then. But I had some things happen in my personal life that really set me to a different course than I was headed to. Life basically stopped for a couple years, and everything kind of changed. A big part of my life is I am a believer in Christ and his story, and I think that that I really came back to that aspect of my life after college, and that kind of led me towards trying to create again.
Not to go into detail, but if that, the three of us know what event we're talking about.
Sure, we can talk about it.
But if that hadn't happened, do you think you would be where you are right now, doing creative things like this?
No, but I think that's the case with everybody. If things hadn't happened in their life, they wouldn't be here. I think that's, everyone has retrospect, but yes, to sum it up, I had a girlfriend for 8 years in high school and junior high and college, and we broke up at the end of college, and it was kind of a time where it's like I was literally about to propose to her, and it came crashing down at the same time. So the thing is, when you grow up with someone like that, 8 years of your life, the most formative years, probably junior high and high school, you don't really know how to live anymore. So you kind of have to start over. So that's basically what happened. And my heart took me towards putting my feelings in songs and writing them. And it helped a lot. Music helped a lot. And I'm still making it. And it's still the most I feel alive is when I'm writing something. If you feel like no one's created this exact moment, so that's why I fell in love with creating things. It was forced on me, but at the same time, I think it was always going to happen in one way or another.
I think if someone has that creative instinct, sometimes it just takes the right inspiration. I think it was Dave Chappelle was talking to somebody, and he was like, sometimes when the idea is in the car driving and just it's like, come on, get in, that's like the best.
Right.
He's like, sometimes I'm in the passenger seat, sometimes I'm in the trunk, and the idea is driving. But if I'm driving, there's no idea in the car. What's the point? There's no idea. Yeah. So I think anyone...
You have to feel forced to make something. I think
the idea or the inspiration, I think, has to be right in order to create anything. If you're like, I should create something, that's never the right motivation. Right.
Yeah.
So Jake.
Yeah.
Jacob.
That's true.
It's your turn.
Hi.
Your turn, friend.
Jake, let's talk a little bit about... I'm just kidding.
Good.
Right? Right.
Intro yourself.
So to talk about my life experience, I'll just keep it short.
Walkers are too long-winded, I'm sorry.
I took guitar lessons in junior high. My parents were dropping me off and picking me up, and I quit after like 2 years, maybe a year and a half, and I was like, this is cool, but I'm more into like the percussion side of things, the way that a song like can move in the sense that like frequency wise, like if, like a freaking 808 kick, or something. I was really into that, just the way that it could, actually you could feel it. And that got me into like hip hop and rap. And so, as a very naive high schooler, I was like, you don't need instruments to make rap music. So I quit lessons, and just got a little keyboard and free software, and made a record in high school with two of my really good friends for a business project, which is, looking back, is so like, it's so like, what do you call it? Telling of where my life was headed.
Oh, yeah.
I was like making a product to sell, and then I was kind of using like my status and my friends to sell that product, and it was like, that's what got me into it, which is just really funny to think about. But yeah, so I did that, and then when I got into college, I went to Ozark Christian College here in town, and but prior to that, actually, I was planning on moving to Springfield and doing something similar to Wes, studying like music or film. And I just went to, like a CIY event, and I felt like God wanted me to stay here, and I played basketball at Ozark, and got serious about like my faith and my music. And shoot, I can't even remember. I think I put out 2 EPs and 1 record while I was in college, rap music. And really love that. I just feel like if you're gonna, the beautiful thing about music specifically is that it's cemented. It's once you put it out, it will outlive you, and if you're gonna do that, you need to say things that matter, and that's what I've always really, really tried hard to do. And I did that, and I put out I think I put out 2 EPs and a record, and then when I graduated, I put out another record called Verses, which I'm really, really proud of. Depending on who you ask, it was unsuccessful. Followed that record up with an EP about that, super meta. I know. I don't know why I do that, because the market for that is 4 people.
Yeah.
I get what failure in a creative.
Very niche.
Yeah, so I did that. And then I am in the middle of a record, kind of. I'm putting it out in parts. I made the first part with a couple of friends called Music is Fun. So yeah, that's kind of where I've been, and stayed here. I'm in Me Like Bees as well. That's probably the most successful thing I'm a part of. I mean, they've been a band for, they date it when they started, which I think is, off the record, I think it's ridiculous, but on the record, I completely agree. But I think you start when you put your first thing out. Yes, you're a band before that, but you're just like, as far as everyone else is concerned, you're just getting together and jamming, right? So they put out their first record, The Ides, in 2013. So they were around for 3 years probably before I met any of them, and then they let me bum around them, and I...
Didn't they put some songs out before the Ides?
Yeah, they put out an untitled EP.
Okay.
Just recorded at Pete's house.
Gotcha, okay.
But...
I remember seeing the Ides in vintage stock whenever I was working there, and hearing the name Me Like Bees, and I was like, where'd they come from? And then, like, cut to, like, 3 years later, and you're telling me about how they're touring and playing pretty big shows and stuff like that, and they seem to just grow. And
yeah, it's crazy how like stuff works out, because I was just like merching it, selling merch for them, and kind of doing like managing stuff on the road as they were on tour for probably 3 years, I think. And then Luke called me one day and was like, hey, our bass player quit. He dropped all the gear off at my house. We have 15 shows that he agreed to. And I was like, haha, I play bass at church. And he's like, all right, come over if you want to learn a few songs, and we'll see how it goes. And, learning about the backdoor meetings that led to me joining the band, it's just like it's such a good example of how it's so out of your hands at some point. Because Luke, he straight up told me, he was like, I didn't want you in the band, and I'm probably the best. Luke's the one I know best out of anyone, prior to joining. He's like, I didn't want you in the band. We had 50 other bass players that were better than you, and come to find out that Pete, who's like super reclusive, very standoffish, not that he's mean or anything. He's just, he has his friends and he has his hobbies, and that's what he knows and that's what he likes, and that's fine. But come to find out, Pete's fighting for me. He's like, he's traveled with us. We know we can trust him. We know he's going to work hard. We know he already buys into us, and that's such a great segue to like the next thing I want to talk about is like what can be super helpful with creating in a small town. And I guess my biggest point that I wanted to start off that section with is you're working with people that you know.
Yeah.
And yes, that has its downsides, but you're also working with people that you trust, and you're also working with people that you believe in more than anything. I can look around there, I can look at both of you, and I can say I have 4 examples of both of you really, really giving me your time and your effort when you didn't have to. And it's like you're not cutting up gumballs for Joe Schmo.
Yeah.
You're cutting up gumballs for me in a sense, and it's like that.
You should get that on a T-shirt. Podcast. You're cutting.
I'd cut your gumballs. But yeah, it's like, and that's the biggest thing I've found helpful of, and I get to travel the country, and I get to tour LA, and I get to tour Chicago, and I get to tour New York, and it's like that the hub here. That's what I love about it is. I literally called it. We had to release a product yesterday, like Me Like Bees. We just put out like bandanas. And I was like, oh, it'd be so cool to have Natty, one of my really, really good friends, be one of the models. He's mixed. He's got a big afro. He usually ties a bandana around his afro. And I was like, this is perfect. Let me just called him up. He lives 3 blocks away. He's like, yeah, I'll be over in 5 minutes. Boom.
Didn't have to pay him.
Yes.
Friend.
That happened in 10 minutes, and it's like, if I did that in LA, hey Wes, can you come over to this? Yeah, but it would take me an hour and 15 to get there. Yeah. I got this in 2 hours, which means I need to leave in 5 minutes.
Everyone you ask at some level, even if you didn't know them, would be like, what can I get out of it?
Exactly.
That there's, in a bigger city, especially when so many people there are industry driven and personal career driven, they make relationships based on what they can get out of it.
Sure, because it's competition.
My wife, Steph, growing up there, it's one thing she hates about Los Angeles is she said she one time went to this party with people in the Valley that she grew up with or went to high school with or something, and someone was like, why are you here? And she's like, what do you mean? And they go, what are you getting out of this? And she's like, what do you mean?
They just didn't
I have
even
friends
beat around
here.
the bush,
I'm getting.
Didn't even register
I'm
that she would
hanging
just
out.
be there for social activity.
They're all people that want to be in the industry. Sure. They're wanting to be writers and directors and all that stuff. And it's like, well, what? And the guy was like perplexed. He's like, huh? Oh, okay. I guess you're
have
just here
fun?
to hang out. Like,
wow,
which is so bizarre.
It's so sad.
Yeah, like here, we just hang out to hang out. Like half the time, the things that we do are just so we can hang out with each other.
Sure.
That's
what we're doing right now.
Yeah, we're making this podcast because we just like hanging out together.
Yeah,
and there's no ulterior motive in a place like this, really, because everyone's
on each other's team, especially creatively, I think, too.
Yeah, no one wants you to fail. In a bigger city, people want you to fail so they don't fail.
Right.
Because there's a limited number of spots.
Sure.
Here, there's not a limited number of spots.
Yeah.
Like,
there's less,
and there's bands
less
that
opportunities probably for creative, like, to play a show for Me Like Bees.
Sure.
There's less places they could go, probably.
Right.
But because Me Like Bees is having success, it's good for every other artist in the town.
Yeah.
And I've seen here like bands that mix. Like,
sure.
We have a friend named Sean who's in a band called Sardis, and there were shows that my band Goodbye Majesty played where our bass player Jay was living in Chicago at the time, going to college. So we were like, Sean, could you come in and play bass? Sean is not a bass player. He plays guitar. He's an incredibly talented guitarist. Mm-hmm. He came in and played shows for us on bass. He didn't want anything out of it. He was just like, yeah, I'll play bass for you guys.
Yeah.
And Alex and Jay have played for you, Peyton, on live shows.
Alex and Jay and Peyton have played for me.
I played for you too,
played
Jake.
For
like
me. I played for Gumash. Like,
yeah.
So
like, oh yeah, I forgot you also played.
Yeah.
Like, it's just this. incestuous is a bad word, but like
find a different one.
intermixing this cesspool of creativity in a good way. Like people just work with each other because someone needs it, you know, like
Yeah. Do either of you have like someone you want to like tell a story about where that did happen to you? Or I mean, I guess you just mentioned like 4 of them.
I don't have as much because I haven't been making stuff as long as you have, Jake.
Yeah.
I don't have a lot of, those are the two different, that's what makes us different, I think, is I'm kind of on the start end of making things, and Jake's been making things for a long time in Joplin, so I don't have a great story about somebody locally. But
well, I mean, like when you and I were in high school together, Jake, we were in video productions class together, and I had been in it already for a year, and the teacher, Mr. Truan, who was like amazing, he trusted me to go out and just make videos because I think he knew it was a chance for me to learn something on my own and be creative and figure out how to do something, because he couldn't teach me how to make a short film. Like that's not his skill set, but he understood I could go out and learn it. But whenever you came into video productions, Jake, we started creating stuff together. Like I had weird ideas and short film.
Weird ones.
Some ones that do not work, that are not good.
you got to find the boundary, though. You got to find.
Yeah.
Sure, we were learning how to do something.
Yeah.
It wasn't about whether it was necessarily good or not, but we were learning how to create something and learn an art form and a skill set.
And it's...
Well, I'll say one thing. I'll say the opportunity...
All right, you get one.
Okay. The opportunity...
Only one thing.
The one thing I have. I mean, I went on...
Be ready to cut him off, Jake.
Okay.
I just went on...
He's on his own track, too.
I went on one tour with Me Like Bees while Jake had been playing bass for... I think he'd been in the band for a year, maybe a little less than that. And I went on one tour with Me Like Bees because I was going to run their merch and stuff. And they let me... I had no music out. I had played maybe 1 or 2 times in front of people ever. And they put me in front of... They let me open for them 3 times on tour. Which there's no they gave me money for it. There's no reason they should have done that, but they did. Just because they liked being around me. And I think there's...
We had a huge blowout on that tour in Joplin. I'm looking at it right now. You know, it's like...
Yeah.
We had a huge show here in town.
Right.
Pate opened it up, and, 200 people.
Right.
I think.
But that, again...
They're still letting people in the door when you started. That's what's crazy.
That does, I think more than anything is it makes me want to keep... It gives me, like, some kind of confidence, And I think that's what... If you give people an opportunity, I think they can surprise you. Or at least it'll... keep making them make stuff,
Yeah, and that is interesting that you say that, because it's like just you can have, I think, to be someone who creates and puts stuff out, I think on some level, and this is an area where like me and my girlfriend like severely disagree, but I always say that you have to be on some level narcissistic, or because you have to say what I'm doing is worth you listening, watching. That's why I'm putting it out on some level, right? And so I think just the idea of someone else also willing to put their time and their energy into it, them saying it's also good and they believe in it, that is like, it does give you confidence. Either, that you're on the right track, or that you're doing something good, or the quality is there, and so I think that's interesting that you say that, because I'll just pick one. I'll pick 2 actually. For the Versus release show, just like I wanted it to be more than a show. And one of my ideas was to transform the entire venue, or using the back room at a local coffee shop, Joplin Ave. Take all the furniture out. I want it to be, the only way it will be set up is for this show, this right here. So I had a whole flower wall, because that kind of fit the aesthetic of the rap album I was making, which is hilarious. But so it was a whole flower wall dedicated to, I had a neon sign made up. It's right in the middle of it. You could take pictures of it. It's sort of a pseudo photo booth at the show. And my friend Molly Kraling, she made the entire wall. And it was a wall. It was like 10 by 10 of fabric. She put individual flowers on the entire thing, and that's something that I didn't have the time to do because I'm putting the rest of the stuff together. But I tell, hey, this is what I'm thinking. She said, yes, I'll do it. And it's like the only recognition she got was me saying it on stage that night and right now, 3 years later, and so she just wanted to do it, and that was huge. And another one more recently is Pate. Pate shot the lyric or the music video for the single off of my latest EP, and we did a few takes, but it was like I trusted you to do it, with just a couple days, probably a week and a half, 2 weeks notice. But I trusted you to just be able to show up. Hey, this is kind of what I'm thinking. Here's my gear. I know you can do it, and that whole project involved 7 other people, and that's what I love about being here. And now the downside of that, which we could go into the next thing, is cautionary tales. The downside of knowing everyone, the downside of being so intertwined is that, people can take certain things that you didn't mean personal, or, so what do you guys think about that? Because I have a million stories,
Oh, sure.
Take advantage of friendship.
For sure. Yeah.
Over, actually helping out with a project or something like that.
I mean, when
you don't pay, when the money's not usually involved, it's hard to motivate a lot of people.
Yeah.
Too. I think when it's mostly doing favors for somebody, they don't feel as obligated to follow through.
Oh, for sure.
Keep doing it.
Definitely. That's even my first thing is, I guess, if we're giving advice for creating in a small town now, it'd be, don't be a yes man or woman.
Don't just say yes to do it because...
And that's the hard thing too.
Like, people are going to rely on you if you say yes.
Yes. And
especially if it's their creative endeavor.
Yeah, I remember, I'll never forget, I guess I kind of forgot, but I'll never forget the sentiment Pate put on his Instagram when he posted about shooting the video. He said, you're always stepping on hollow ground when someone else asks you to work on one of their projects. And I think if everyone viewed it that way, they wouldn't be so yes-oriented, because you want to say yes because they're your friends, but you don't think about the time commitment it'll take. So I guess I would say that would be my first thing.
And it's never as important to them as it is to you.
For sure.
If I were to try and direct an independent film here, put together a project, the hardest thing, hands down, would be getting people to buy into it and take it seriously, because if I'm going to take it seriously, I can't be the only one, especially with film. Making music, you could theoretically be the only one taking it seriously while making it.
Sure. If you're not in a band, I don't have anybody playing with me usually. I mean, sometimes Alex and Jay or whoever, I might get some guys to play with me to play them live, but no one did anything on my record except me.
Right.
So, I mean,
making a film is inherently a collaborative thing. Everyone always that guy directed the movie, but 200 people work on even independent film. A lot of times there's big crews, you look at the end credits of an Avengers movie. It's the entire phone book of the United States. You have to
watch them all because there's more.
I watch every single credit.
There's more at the end.
And they're all digital artists.
Yes. Oh yeah. The visual effects artists are it's literally the entire phone book of Los Angeles. But it's a small city that makes a film. The director has to rely on people that are committed. And in a small town, one thing that's a challenge is getting people to be committed. Mm-hmm. I know I could trust you and Alex and Jay and Zach and a bunch of people to buy in and help support me. But the second you start going out of a tight inner circle, you're going to have people who are oh yeah, sure. And also the tendency in a small town is to just be nice and be absolutely, yeah, I can help you out with that. Even if it's not sincere.
Yeah.
People put on a nice face because it's small town. And one thing I was going to say is one positive in a small town is the 3 of us are all incredibly strong in our faith. We're Christian guys. We live in a largely Christian community. People that are Christian are going to inherently care more. If their faith is important to them, they're going to care more about other people and seeing them do well. So one reason I think there's less ulterior motives in a place like this is because of that. But at the same time, the flip side of that is a Christian person is more inherently going to say yes because they want to be nice and kind and appear caring. I'm not saying it's like two-faced or anything like that. It could inherently be genuine, but they're going to try to help even if they're not really committed,
Yeah.
because that's maybe what they feel like they should do. And that's a blind spot that I think people have. It's hard to put yourself in other people's shoes.
Yeah.
So to say yes to something, not really understanding how important it is. Like, if I didn't know you, Jake, and you asked me to shoot your music video or something, if I didn't know how much you cared about what you were doing, it's hard for me to put myself in. We've had tons of conversations about how much we care about what we are creating.
Yeah.
If I didn't know you and I hadn't had those conversations, it would be really hard for me to really put into perspective how important it is that I take it seriously. You know what I mean? And I think one cautionary tale, so to speak, of like, I have always felt bad about this, but it's something that can happen if people don't really understand. And since this, my buddy Patrick and I have reconciled. We reconciled very soon.
Oh, we've got a story.
Yeah.
Here we go.
I was shooting my short film in college. I was directing it. And Cousins. And
is Patrick and Devery in that one?
No.
They're in a different one.
That's a different short. That's like a real short. That's like 5 minutes.
Okay.
It's called Until Death. But Patrick was my roommate. He was Zach's roommate in college. The three of us all lived together. And Patrick's the kind of guy that gets real into like a project. Like he got on this kick of wanting to create sugar glass, like breakable glass. And I was like, oh, I have this scene where we could potentially use it. And he spent time making it and creating this sugar glass. And when it came to the day to shoot, we were shooting, and I was like, we don't have time anymore. Like, film shoots go long. They're incredibly complex. We were shooting one where we had like a squib, like we had this air compressor up to this guy's shoulder, and we shot blood everywhere. And then a character was supposed to like dive through this window and it was a complex thing. And we got there to shoot it, and we realized like we didn't have time. And on set, I had to tell Patrick like I have to cut that out. And he like took offense to it, like he was personally hurt by it. And my fault was I didn't take the time to sit down with him and explain it. I just kind of flippantly was like, we don't have time, we can't do it anymore, because I had like my mind on. Someone said one time like directing a film is like being pecked to death by 100 penguins or something. And when you're directing something, you have a bunch of stuff on your mind. You're not just thinking about the scene that you're shooting, you're thinking about
how it relates to other scenes.
How it connects, where can I shoot this to cut together? Does it work? Does it look good? All that stuff. And so I didn't have my mind on Patrick, how Patrick was feeling. And so it like hurt his feelings that he spent all this time doing it, and I had to cut it. And I felt bad. And he and I talked it through, and it was fine. But like, if he was not my friend, I might not have ever known. He might have just been like, oh, okay, fine. He might not have been personally hurt. Also, Patrick doesn't do film stuff. That's another thing too. Like, not knowing that sometimes things get cut. He was hurt by it, which I understand, but that's the one story that came to mind whenever you brought that up, is like, be careful working with friends, because especially with something as huge as film production, feelings can easily get hurt because tensions are high.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was going to say, is the two other cautionary tales, quote unquote, I have on here is define your terms. Have a clear understanding of expectations. Like when you committed to that, quote unquote committed, right? Yeah. You should have said, hey, yeah, if we have time to shoot it and it works out, and those are the expectations, sure, Patrick. And then going forward, so then. Yeah.
I shouldn't have expected him to know.
Yeah, exactly.
Film production.
Exactly.
Because he's not a filmmaker,
And then the other one is just which is very similar to what happened. You can't negatively talk behind someone's back in a small town.
They will hear about it.
Yes, for sure. And it will always be worse if they do hear from someone else. I've so many stories of, just the environment when I was creating Ozark was terrible. It was so bad. You're sitting in class learning about being Christ-like when these classmates of yours are talking about you on the internet. You could go read it, and you just can't do that because it will always be better if you just brought it to them, and
that's a level of maturity too. Like
yeah.
college students, high school students, they are, human beings are petty and gossipy, but like the hope would be we be mature, Christ-like people, and even if you don't like a person, even if you don't like what they do, you don't have to tell them.
Yeah.
Like that's something the internet has created, is like you got to tell everybody if you hate them, which doesn't make any sense. But like who cares if you hate them? Why is that?
Yeah.
It's not constructive. It's just mean.
Yeah.
But like just don't say anything.
Yeah. That
like,
also works.
If you don't like what they're doing, fine. It's not everything is going to be for everybody.
And they're probably not doing it for you.
Yeah, exactly.
Just like us.
Like with me and you, Jake, like I'm not a huge hip hop fan.
I don't like hip hop either.
Hip hop.
Yeah, seriously.
Nobody likes hip hop. But I'm not a big hip hop guy, but I see how much you care about what you do, and I care about you being happy with what you create, and I enjoy listening to your music because you're my friend, and like you are expressing yourself creatively.
Yeah.
Like me criticizing anything for your music doesn't make any sense, because like I don't know what I'm talking about. Like I don't know hip hop. I don't. It's not my thing. But like it wouldn't even occur to me to like badmouth like. Yeah, Jake, he does hip hop, but like, man.
Did you hear that rhyme scheme on track 4?
God. Like,
it's
no.
like so overplayed, right?
Yeah, it's like, Jake does rap music, and he really is passionate about it, and I admire that. And like, even if hip hop is not my thing, I can still do that. And like, it doesn't mean I have to trash talk you behind your back. Like,
and I guess I'd say, just as importantly, if you do enjoy someone's work,
talk about it.
Yeah, tell them. Like,
yeah.
That's huge.
Especially in a small town.
Yeah.
You got to support, everyone's got to support each other, I think, in a small town creatively.
I think everyone likes hearing that what they're doing has some type of positive impact. Like, I've always thought about I go to a church in California called Sandals. It's a big church, 20,000 something people. The main campus is like, you guys have been there. It's huge. And I've always thought about going up to the pastor just to tell him like, hey, I really admire what you do, because
he's hearing thousands of complaints every week about what
absolutely.
they don't like. Yeah.
Pastors getting criticism, a whole other ball of wax. Yeah. But Jake writing down episode idea. But like just going up to someone and being like, hey, what you do is really important, really good, and it impacted me in a positive way. People don't want to do that for some reason. It's easier to be negative, but I think it's important to share that what someone has done, you've enjoyed it even on a minor level. Yeah. Like,
so let's do that. Like, let's do like creator spotlight. Let's do who are a couple people that you guys pull from in terms of like inspiration, or like who you're trying to emulate in terms of like their style or their impact or their reach, whether that be here in town or in general. Because obviously, if you pull from, a specific drummer who's not here, they're kind of retroactively affecting here because of you, Sure. So anyone, like, who do you guys want to, like, real quick, just shout out? Or
in terms of my taste in creatives, my favorite film director is Paul Thomas Anderson. I love his films, and if I could emulate somebody, or like if I would point to a style of film I would want to make, it would probably be close to his. Lots of historical stuff, like time period things, And I just really admire the style of film that he makes. In terms of music, drummers that I love, John Bonham of Led Zeppelin is incredible. Obviously, Travis Barker's a phenomenal drummer. Adam Willard, the original drummer of Angels and Airwaves.
Dude, Pate, you should have seen him in concert.
Peyton, did you go see them at one point?
No, I was too young.
You weren't there. How old were you? You were like
16
7?
and up show.
Yeah. But yeah, those guys are huge for me in terms of my drumming. But yeah, filmmaking wise, Paul Thomas Anderson is a big one. Like for me, it's really hard to point to anybody else. Like he is so like singular to me. I connect so much with the films that he makes, even the ones that are not my favorites. Like I just really like his style a lot. There Will Be Blood's probably my favorite film.
Okay, yeah, I was going to say, if there's one, if you haven't heard of P.T. Anderson, what's the movie you go watch?
There Will Be Blood, probably. Okay. Most people might know Boogie Nights, maybe. That was his first big hit. It's not my favorite. It's about the porn industry. I don't really care about the porn industry. Yeah. It's not a fun topic to me. But, yeah, There Will Be Blood, The Master, most recently Phantom Thread. Just a really, really great filmmaker. But outside of that, no names are really popping to mind. I could go on forever about filmmakers, but.
What about you, Pate?
My favorite creator is John Frusciante. He's
Guys for John.
He's
hashtag Guys for John.
Guitar player and a singer, and he's a solo artist, but he's probably best known for being in the Red Hot Chili Peppers for a number of years, who are back together now. John is back with the Red Hot Chili Peppers.
Guys for John.
Which is exciting. But he's my favorite creator. He's spiritual in his lyrics, and he's but accessible in his solo stuff. And he's creative in the sense that he does a lot of different things. But he's my favorite. And please, if you've got stuff, throw it in there.
And to shout out, continuing to shout out in the creator spotlight, like there, since I moved and have been visiting, the number of like independent things here in local shops, local businesses. Like I haven't been to Bookhouse Cinema yet, but I'm like super excited to go because you guys have been talking about it. Yeah. Like we've only ever had like one theater in Joplin, and the ticket prices are insane. So having an independent theater, getting movies here that have not normally been here is really a cool thing. And I don't know the creators of Bookhouse. I don't know who opened it, but like that's awesome. Like it's something that we've always wanted. The coffee shops that have opened here. I mean, like in the years that I moved away, whenever I moved away, there wasn't one that I know of. Maybe Joplin Ave was there, but that was it.
Yeah.
But now there's like 5 or whatever. So like the number of creative people that aren't just creating, I mean, Jake, you can talk more about this. They're not creating for themselves. They're not creating art necessarily, but they're creating stuff for their community. Yeah. So Jake, I mean, you work in one of those shops.
Yeah.
You can talk about that a little bit more.
I'd say on the creator spotlight, I would, that's something I've been mulling around just like recently. I mean, we're talking weeks recent, just something I've been thinking about is creating spaces, and creating environments for people. And, I'm on my creator spotlight. The owner of the shop I work at, Adam Francis, he's been roasting coffee for like 8 years, and the opportunity to open his own cafe popped up about 1.5 years ago. And, he took the jump, and, we're constantly we have a group me, and it's like, hey, here's a drink idea. Hey, this customer came in and suggested this. That would be really cool. Or, hey, what if we moved the tables, blah, 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 and did this? And so it's like constantly thinking about how we can provide a space for people to use for whatever we have people come in, and who knows if they're graphic designers, who knows if they're video editors, who knows if they're musicians mixing their record, and it's like you are providing a space for that. And another thing is just, Autumn at Joplin Ave, Kurt at Greenhouse, John at Zinc. It's like they want to help you. And, like Cardboard Cafe, Adam was like, you don't have to pay me to use the shop. after hours. You don't have to pay me.
You want to shout out what Cardboard Cafe
I'll
is?
explain what Cardboard Cafe is.
Okay.
Cardboard Cafe is a it's a group that Jake and a few of his friends have started. It's live event, like events of board games where you can.
It's like a board game bar.
There's been three of them.
You've been to 4, but the first one was private, just like a beta thing.
They have a collection of board games that they own, and they bring them to. They've been at coffee shops, but they could go anywhere. They're mobile, so they could do it, any place. But they've been at coffee shops. They open for, let's say, 4 hours. They pay the coffee shop a certain amount of money, and you can come in and you can pay $5 or $10 and play all these board games, which you wouldn't have an opportunity to otherwise. So that's just another avenue that Jake's and his friends are creating in.
Sort of the creating an environment. That's where that really thinking about that stuff came from. Because, man, it was crazy. It's like Natty was really feeling like, Natty is one of the buddies that I'm starting it with, and he was really feeling like beaten up over the first public one we did. He's like, man, I thought there would be more people here. And I was like, I know you have plans, like years plans. I know you see what you want this to be, but right now we're building it, and
stuff take time.
Yeah, and I don't say what you want. If this wasn't a failure tonight, I've never seen like my mom and my brother and my sister-in-law sit down and just like play a game together. Yeah. And it's like that is huge. And it's like those moments are, you don't know how many are happening when you create an event, or create a space. Even your concert, you don't know what moments happen there. It's just you were the conduit, and so I think man, those can be powerful, and if you have people here in Joplin or wherever you are, if you're listening to this, that are making things happen, or if you have an idea, I'd say just go for it, because people ultimately want to see you succeed, and it might be
part of it too.
Yeah, and they might want to jump in and help you, and maybe they don't, but if you really believe in it, it will absolutely be worth it. So yeah.
And to kind of transition us to wrapping up, I think that's a good place, and I think too, like, we're not really sure what the future of this podcast is going to be yet. We're still figuring out. We've got episodes written, ideas. We're gonna do what we can to make it available and accessible, and we're kind of building this thing as we go too. Like we might all have visions of where we want this to go or what we want it to be, but it's in a building process. But if you're listening to this and you're from Joplin, I would imagine a lot of our early listeners are probably going to be. Hopefully you connected in some way with what we talked about, and if not, that's okay. If you found it interesting, let us know.
It's not for you anyway.
It's not for you anyways. We don't care. We don't care at all. But
we do care about helping the local environment. So if you have an idea of something,
if you have as these episodes go, you'll kind of see more of the stuff we're going to talk about. We have an episode coming up about binge watching. We're going to debate the topic there. We're going to talk about our favorite movie going experiences. We're going to talk about nostalgia in media. We're going to talk about dreams. We have a really cool episode about dreams that we're going to do. And so we have a lot of different ideas, but if you have some ideas that you would like to hear our perspective on, maybe a perspective that you relate to, let us know.
Drop a comment, like and subscribe.
Like and smash that like button. We don't know if there's a like button yet, but smash it, please.
If you're on Spotify, smash the subscribe. I
don't know if you can get podcasts on Spotify or not, but we're going to figure it out.
Yes.
But yeah, thank you for listening. If you were listening, it's not for you. We don't care if you were, but thank you.
Roll the jingle.
Roll the jingle.
Signing off. This is Peyton.
Signing off. This is Jake.
Signing off. This is Wes. Is that our thing? Is this how we're going to end it?
It is.
Roll the jingle!
And cut.